Nice and cold in Kansas City, but we are ready to start talking baseball as we get closer and closer to spring training and opening day for the Kansas City Royals. Welcome in to the 810 Hot Stove Show, brought to you by your independent tire dealers. And once again, we have a great season of Hot Stove lined up for you. Joel Goldberg in studio, alongside at least on the airwaves, of my broadcast partner, Royals Hall of Famer Jeff Montgomery, who I believe is enjoying a little bit better weather than we have here in KC. Out in Phoenix for fantasy camp. Monty, what's going on?
His tie line is retraining. Here it goes.
Joel, I'm back now. I'm sorry, I had a little interrupt here on the technology, but
I don't feel bad.
Certainly glad to be joining you here with sunny Arizona, and always when you get on a baseball field in the month of January, it is awesome.
Well, we'll talk more about that in just a moment, and you've got a good guest coming up with George Brett. Can't ever go wrong with George, especially considering his role with the team last year, having spent a couple of months as the interim hitting coach, but I know he's out there with you at fantasy camp, so you'll get a chance to catch up with him. We're going to also visit with Mark Gubicza in a little bit. Want to get his take on Jason Vargas. Last year, we talked to him about Irvin Santana. So we'll get to all that in just a bit, Monty, but I'll tell you what, everybody is absolutely itching for baseball, and really, I feel like people have been talking about baseball since October, since the season ended. What's the feel out there among the fantasy campers and people there at the Royals complex?
Well, one, there's a high level of expectation like there should be. Everyone who puts down a nice amount of money to come out and be part of the Royals Alumni Fantasy Camp, certainly they're true Blue Royal fans, and they've been so hungry for winning baseball in Kansas City. They got a great taste of it throughout the entire season last year. And if you think about last year, I think it was really kind of capsulized in the very last at-bat of the season when Justin Maxwell hit the grand slam to end the X-rating ball game. And I think that excitement, I mean, we saw it the first time I've been in Kauffman Stadium at the last game of the season, where we had standing room only, and there was just the excitement in that atmosphere. And now everyone is expecting that to kind of spill over and carry right into this upcoming baseball season. So there's just a huge amount of expectation. Everyone's very excited about the off-season moves, especially a couple guys we're going to have to top the batting lineup. So there's a lot of excitement, a lot of hope. Along with that, comes a little bit of pressure from the team. So it'll be very, very fun and interesting to watch how that all kind of materializes. But I think with this team, the experience they gained last year was invaluable, and they got some great leadership on that team, and a couple of new guys are going to even add to that. So I think the expectation, I guess I'll just say the bar has been raised, and I think that's something that's going to be a lot of fun again to follow and just kind of watch how that plays out, especially early in the year.
Well, I think you make an interesting point on expectations too, because while there was hope and excitement last year, and there was at least some thought that this team could make some noise, I think the difference from last year to this year now is that it is expected. And I'm not going to go so far as to say it's playoffs or bust. They're not just building here for 1 year and potentially a final year of James Shields. They're trying to build so that they are in contention and in the mix every single year. But I think that now, not just here in Kansas City, but around baseball, for anybody that's paying attention, there is a genuine belief that this team can be a contender. With that comes expectations. I want to get a couple of quick takes from you on the moves in the offseason. I know that we haven't seen a whole lot lately. A lot of it was earlier on, but it's our first chance to talk here on the Sports Radio 810 Hot Stove Show. And to me, Monty, it seems like the Royals, while they could still upgrade in some certain spots, and hey, it'd be great to even add another pitcher if possible, but they don't have any gaping holes, to me it looks like, with the moves in right field, second base, and then adding Jason Vargas.
And I think just the consistency that you're going to be able to see on a daily basis when the lineup is posted at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I think that's going to really have a very positive impact. And I know the month of May last year was such a treacherous month for the offense, and a lot of times you're looking for lineups that are going to work. Ned Yost would be looking for matchups. He was looking for guys who maybe were swinging a hot bat, guys who he felt like maybe were not the typical leadoff guy, or maybe not the typical number 3 hole hitter, but he had to try some things with the tools that he had to work with, and times they worked, times they didn't. But now, like you mentioned, no holes that you really have to be overly concerned about. And every team in baseball, when camp breaks, there's a fair amount of almost like everyone's kind of created equal, but the depth is really the key, and the teams that end up winning are one, either the teams that have that great depth, or two, the teams that stay extremely healthy during the course of the year. And that's one thing that I think is going to be important for the Royals. They have to stay healthy, and they have a great training staff. They were awarded during this offseason for being one of the best in baseball, if not the best in baseball. So that's going to be important for this team, because maybe you don't have quite the depth that some of the other teams have. And we see what some of the teams have done as far as adding pieces to their puzzle. Even in the Central Division, teams like the Minnesota Twins, they're going to be a revamped pitching staff. They're going to be teams that are going to be more competitive. So I think that's going to really kind of it's going to play itself out during the course of the season, but very important for them to stay healthy.
Well, and you talk about depth too, and the importance of that. And this really is a good training staff. I think it's 2 out of the last 3 years that they've had this kind of recognition. And the year in between there was the year that you had all the Tommy John surgeries. And I think that they would tell you, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, but a lot of training staffs would tell you that while they believe in themselves, and Nick Kenny, Kyle Turner, these guys are really among the best in baseball, if not the best. And obviously their peers feel so too. But sometimes that award could be a little bit of the kiss of death, because it means that you were really healthy the year before. Obviously, the trainers have a lot to do with that. There was some luck that came with it too, and you know how that goes. So they're going to get thrown some curveballs at some point. They weren't really all that bad last year in the injury department. It could happen again this year, and so that is where that depth ends up being so important. And they have, added to that depth. They did lose David Lowe, but they have a plethora of outfielders. They add Danny Valencia, and I still think, and I'm curious your thought on this, that whatever that rotation looks like on opening day, and I know that they would love for one of the young guys, Duffy, Ventura, or even a long shot, not even that long of a shot, Kyle Zimmer to make the rotation. 1 would be great out of spring training. 2 would really be a nice sign. But I think the key to this rotation is the middle of the year and, a couple of months down the road. How significant are those young guys, any of those 3, in the rotation? Because I think that's the future and even the present for this team.
Yeah, we talked a lot over the course of the last couple of years what Dayton Moore has been able to assemble with regard to the arms. He announced when he was first hired as a general manager of the Royals in 2006 that the pitching is the currency of baseball. We're going to build arms. We're going to stockpile arms, and now you're really kind of seeing that pipeline produce arms, and we've seen some really quality arms come out, and with the Zimmers and the Duffys and the Venturas, you've got a great options there, whether they're on your team on opening day or they're just guys that are kind of ready when their time is called. It's something that a lot of teams would love to have, that type of depth. And depth's going to be important for the rotation, because Irvin Santana was a guy that was a find last year. He was a guy that no one counted on having anywhere near the production that he had. Now, he had the type of production that he has the ability to do. We've seen it over periods of his career, but last year he really took advantage of the opportunity that he was given by the Kansas City Royals. Could he repeat that again this year if he signed back? Who knows? But someone needs to step forward and be that type guy who gives you a lot more than what you were expecting when you go into the season. And any of those 3 young arms certainly have exactly that same potential that like an Irvin Santana has.
All right, Monty, I want to shift gears a little bit. And while there haven't been any major moves for the Royals in the last few weeks, and a little bit of a splash with Brad Penny recently, but they made a lot of their moves earlier in the offseason. But this is one that does affect the Royals. So the move of the week is brought to you by the Independent Tire Dealers, locally owned and operated. Find an independent tire dealer near you by going to itdroll.com or call 1-877-ITD-ROLL. The big signing this morning announced, broken by Ken Rosenthal of FoxSports.com and Fox Sports and MLB Network, of Masahiro Tanaka, the Japanese pitcher, 25-year-old, signing with who else? The Yankees, for a boatload of money. And a couple of thoughts here, Monty. One is, and I mentioned on Between the Lines yesterday with Kevin Kietzman, that we were hoping to have Ken Rosenthal on to talk about the chances of signing Irvin Santana, Tanaka, and his free agency. And the only stipulation was Kenny would be on, provided there wasn't any major news today that tied him up. Well, this would qualify as major news. I texted with him this morning, and he's the best in the business. I really believe that. He said he was up all night, and he is the one that broke that story, and there's been other minor things going on today, too. So we will catch up with Ken soon. But I want to know, first off, Monty, just your take now on the free agent market, because I think a lot of these pitchers have been held up for quite a while with the new posting system as more teams were able to be involved in the bidding process. And so a lot of teams, it seems to me, were waiting to see what happened with Tanaka, and maybe now we start to get some resolution.
Yeah, and that's really kind of the first thing we saw here in the locker room, the coaches' locker room, with guys like Dennis Leonard and Al Fitzmaurice, and really all the guys that were in there. When that flashed across the television monitor we had in the coaches' locker room there, everyone was just amazed at the the guy gets a $155 million contract from the Yankees. And Dennis Leonard said he never even played a game in the minor leagues over here, but obviously he has great stuff, great potential, and that's why the Yankees were willing to make that type of an offer. And I'm sure there are other teams in the ball game as far as having them be part of their team. But I think when you look at the remaining three guys, I think of Ubaldo Jimenez, I think of Matt Garza and Irvin Santana. Those guys all had very high sights set for what their potential would be during this free agency. And they were hopeful that probably something would have gotten done, really before the end of December, before the calendar turned to the next year. But unfortunately, the Tanaka situation held all of that up. So I would look for the domino effect to really kind of take over now, and you'll see some guys start to sign. I still hold out hopes that there's some way that the Royals are still in contention for doing something with Irvin Santana. I know their payroll is going to be enormous. I believe the payroll is somewhere between $90 and $100 million. It would obviously mean that something would have to go in order to be able to free up something to bring on an Irvin Santana. But with that draft choice compensation, who knows? Maybe that the Royals end up being the team that he says, "Hey, I'm willing to do a lesser year, a lesser deal in order to be part of this organization."
Well, my thought on it, Monty, is, and I still think it's a long shot. I really do, based on the payroll and the fact that it's not like the market has totally eroded on Irvin Santana. You remember last year, Kyle Loesch was really held up because of the compensation, but a lot of other guys had signed. There are a lot of teams out there that were in these sweepstakes, whether it be teams like the Dodgers and Angels or the Cubs, and I don't see the Cubs giving up a draft pick, or the White Sox, but the Diamondbacks. There were a lot of teams that were willing to spend a lot of money here, and so they still could raise the stakes. Good to see that the Yankees are out of the mix at least, but I still think it's going to take a lot based on budget, and I don't think the market is totally closed. But I do feel like every day that goes by is a bonus for the Royals, and at least keeps them in the race another day longer. We know that Irvin loved it here. I still think personally, and this is just my guess on it, that it's a bit of a long shot, but maybe not as much of a long shot as it was before. We had a few Twitter questions about that, so hopefully that answers that question a little bit. And, we'll see where it goes. But I think we're going to see a lot shake out here in the next week or two. All right, Monty, let's step aside real quick. Coming up later, we'll talk with George Brett. Want to talk to you about Fantasy Camp 2, but we've got to take a break, and when we come back, we'll visit with another Royals Hall of Famer, Monty's former teammate, Mark Gubicza, when we come back on the Sports Radio 810 Hot Stove Show.
Whatever you require for audio, video, and broadcast solutions, it's Professional Video Supply. PVS is a leading supplier and integrator of pro video and audio gear for the Midwest. For the boardroom, worship, production houses, medical facilities, TV stations, and sports networks, PVS has it. Canon, Sony, Yamaha, Sharp, and hundreds of others. From a single camera or touchscreen display to an entire TV studio, remember Professional Video Supply, the official video source for 810 WHB TV at pvskc.com. pvskc.com.
Some of the best teams in the world are in Kansas City. The Chiefs, the Royals, Sporting, and the Border Patrol.
The Border Patrol? St. John and Bucati? Those two guys couldn't hold on.
Easy there, fellas. We may not be the two godfathers of Kansas City sports like you guys are,
but we do know how to have a good time talking sports.
And having a good time like Gary Lezak has a good time.
Make the Border Patrol a part of your morning, just like I do.
Watch Sports Radio 810's Border Patrol, weekday mornings from 7 to 8 on 38 The Spot.
It's a good price. It's low mileage. They were very straightforward about the lowest price and
no haggling, no hassle type thing. I'm all for that.
How did we do on your trade-in value?
Really well. I was hoping for half of what I got for it.
I got, over what I was thinking I was gonna get for it.
We'll be back ourselves. Even if we don't live in the area, we'll figure out a way.
Welcome back to the Sports Radio 810 Hot Stove Show, brought to you by the Independent Tire Dealers, locally owned and operated. Find an independent tire dealer near you by going to itdroll.com.
Gooby's good to go.
Or call 1-877-ITD-ROLL. And we're going to head to the phones right now. First off, we have, of course, Royals Hall of Fame closer out at fantasy camp, probably just blowing everyone away with the heat, or maybe just the slider. Still has it. I know he does. And we are joined right now on the phone by his former teammate, another Royals Hall of Famer, and the pride of Philadelphia, although he's in, I'm sure, lovely Southern California, Mark Gubicza. Gooby, what's up?
Yo, what's going on, man? Philly right now with all that snow they got in the cold, I'm pretty happy to be hanging out at 83-degree weather out here in SoCal.
Yeah, well, thanks for thinking of us on that one, although we don't have the snow. I mean, let's be honest, how often do you go back to Philly in the winter?
You know what? I did go back there 2 years ago at the end of December into January, and I'm like, you know what? That's probably why I don't hang out there too much during the wintertime. Summer and fall, perfect. Just like, KC, this fall is the most beautiful time ever in Kansas City that time. And then this time of the year, it's iffy. I watch a couple of those Chiefs games on Sunday afternoon. They look pretty cold, so I'm kind of, the blood thinned out. I'm not quite as tough as I pretend to be anymore.
Hey, it was a good football year for you and your broadcast partner, Victor Rojas. I mean, Victor, still a diehard Chiefs fan, having grown up here, and you had your Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, even I still follow the Chiefs quite a bit because I used to go to a lot of the games, especially when Marty Schottenheimer was the head coach and Joe Montana, Marcus Allen, and the boys were there for a while there. So it was kind of fun to watch those games. But they're back now, the Chiefs, and the Eagles certainly had a good run themselves. So it was good all the way around for football fans, especially of the Chiefs and Eagles.
All right, let's talk baseball. That is why we had you on.
We're going to talk football all the time.
We can do whatever you want.
No. Anything for you, man. You and Monty.
Don't hijack this. Victor would hijack it, and he'd take it wherever he wanted to. Monty, you there? Oh, we might have lost Monty, so it might just be me and you, so we could talk badly about Monty, but I know that you would...
he probably can't. He can't even find the phone now out there in fantasy camp. I'll tell you, I did that a couple years ago. That was a lot of fun. It's a blast out there in Arizona. Surprised for that fantasy camp.
And does anybody ever still ask you like they do Monty? Seems like whenever the Royals are in a little bit of a rut, pitching-wise, bullpen-wise, I should say, which didn't happen very much at all last year, I'll hear as we're walking out to do our show, "Hey, Monty, you still got anything left?" And 51 years old. I still feel like he could do it, but he always says no. People still ask you that?
Yeah, and I always say, if they can move the mound to 40 feet away, I think I'd still be able to get someone out. But 60 feet, 6 inches, no chance. I'll be backing up way too many bases. I'll get in shape by backing up bases, but I certainly won't get anybody out.
All right, let's talk. For the second straight year, the Royals end up with a pitcher.
Monty's on the phone. He is up.
That was with you guys, the Los Angeles Angels, last year, as you broadcast all of their games. So tell us about Jason Vargas, because last year, Gooby, and I think Monty and I talked about this over and over again on radio and on TV throughout the year. You hit it on the head with Irvin Santana. You really believed that he could be a legitimate number two, and you really had it pegged. Everything that he did on the year, he did. So what can we expect on Jason Vargas?
Yeah, first of all, Irvin, I'm just a big fan of his. His stuff is electric, and then when he's focused, like he was last year for you guys, there was no doubt he was going to have a big year. Now Jason Vargas, if you look at his overall stuff-wise, fastball velocity, and, it's about average. He can get up there 88, 89, but he spots it so well and pitches inside so effectively that it looks a lot more, it's firmer looking than it really is. Changeups great. He can throw back-to-back changeups.
Monty's there. He's just on the phone.
Times could be very good. And what I really like about him the most, he competes so well. He's tough. He's not a big guy, but he will pitch inside. He will protect his teammates. If he feels one of his teammates got hit by a pitch that the opposing pitcher threw at him on purpose, he'll protect his guys. He'll give you innings. Great guy in the clubhouse. Great guy just to even have a conversation with. You'll enjoy him. You'll enjoy having talks with him because he's, like I said, he's a tough kid who competes very, very well.
Let me ask you one more, and then I'll let Monty jump in. But when you talk about good in the clubhouse, you talk about, because we don't see a lot of those guys now that are willing to throw at someone to defend their teammates. The game has obviously changed so much from when you guys played. But, the Royals have some good leaders in James Shields and Jeremy Guthrie. And I've really heard the same thing what you're saying, that he's one of those type of guys too. And so is he the kind of a veteran pitcher that will be able to take some of these young guys? Got that good lefty and Danny Duffy. And then we've got a couple of righties in Kyle Zimmer that should emerge pretty soon, and Yordano Ventura. Is he a guy, and he's going to be here for a while now, that can help lead the way?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think when you sit there, especially if you're a young pitcher and a left-handed pitcher in particular, when you watch what he can do, so many young pitchers shy away from throwing, like I said, back-to-back changeups because they figure you better go with a fastball after a changeup. But he has so much confidence in that pitch that you realize that outside of the fastball, the changeup is the best pitch for me in baseball, whether you're a righty or a lefty. And if you have that confidence to throw, back-to-back or even back-to-back-to-back after that, then you learn how to pitch. I think that's what the younger pitchers are going to be able to see. And Monty, we always talk about his fastball and slider, but his changeup was outstanding. He wasn't afraid to throw that back-to-back. Charlie Liebrand was a great pitcher as far as be able to utilize his changeup and make his fastball look that much better. So the guys are going to learn a lot from him. He's not a big-time talker, but he's a guy that, will be around his teammates, will be in that clubhouse, half hour, 45 minutes after the game talking baseball, will be around the guys, when they go back to get a bite to eat after a game on the road, things like that. That's the type of guy that makes everyone around you better. Because as a young player, I learned so much from, the late Paul Splittor, from Dennis Leonard, from Larry Gore, from the late Dan Quisenberry. Those guys you learn so much from just watching them. They don't even have to tell you anything, but you just watch how they went about their business. And once you figure that out, then you become not only a better person, but certainly a better pitcher on the mound.
Yeah, you made a good point regarding Vargas. He's a guy that grew up really around baseball. His dad was a high school coach and a guy that really understands the right way to play the game. And I think a lot of that really spills over. And the thing I remember about him in the games that he pitched against the Royals was he just had that composure on the mound. He's a guy that exuded the confidence that you like to see out of a pitcher. You knew he wasn't afraid. Like you mentioned, not a real big guy, but a guy that was going to really kind of take control of the game. And I think what we're going to see from him, and correct me if I'm wrong, is just a really a steady, consistent guy. Maybe he doesn't have the ability to go out and throw with a no-hit stuff. Like we saw Irvin Santana last year. There were some games he was so dominant. He was just filthy. And maybe Vargas doesn't quite have that upside that we saw from Irvin Santana, but a guy that's maybe a very consistent guy that's going to go out there on a every fifth-day basis and keep you in games and deep in the games and have your chance to win.
Yeah, Monty, I agree. I remember when Bruce Keeson was our pitching coach there in Kansas City. He would, talk especially some of our veteran pitchers around. And he said, well, most games you're going to go out, go 7 innings, give up 3 runs. That gives your team a chance to win. There's going to be some games in which you go 9 innings with no runs allowed. And that's what you look for from Vargas. He'll end up with a 2 or 3, maybe 4 complete games, couple shutouts in which because his changeup was that good and he spotted his fastball well. But even the games when he doesn't have his his pinpoint control or best stuff, he fights his way into deep in the game. And I think when you look at the Royals and what we've seen out of that offense in the last couple of years, if it's consistent, they'll score him runs and he'll win some games for you just because he'll fight his way into deep in the game. And with that bullpen, the way it's set up for the Royals, that you're going to be able to hold on to those leads. So I really think, he might not have the stuff that Irvin has, but he has a chance of being at least, anywhere between a 14 to 16 game winner just because he competes well enough to be able to stay in the games and have a chance to win.
All right, we're joined right now by Royals Hall of Famer Mark Gubicza and also Royals Hall of Famer Jeff Montgomery out in Phoenix. And all right, you brought up Bruce Keeson. I'm changing subjects here a little bit, but it seems to me, and this is before my time, well before my time in Kansas City, that any time the name Bruce Keeson gets brought up by Monty when we're on the road talking, stories, baseball, as we often do after the games or during the games for that matter, that Bruce Keeson, it seems to me, had more interesting, that Monty, you have more interesting stories, some clean, some not, regarding Bruce Keeson. Am I right on that?
Well, the thing about Bruce Keeson, he was around the game a long time, and he was an old-school type guy. And I know Gooby will attest to this, and I've talked to a number of players. In fact, some of the guys that here, I was talking to Mike Sweeney yesterday about the impact that Bruce Keeson had on a lot of young players as far as learning the right way to play the game. Oftentimes, it kind of goes back to the day when pitchers were not necessarily headhunters, but Bruce Keeson was really oftentimes referred to as a headhunter, a guy that was trying to intimidate the opposition by hitting them or, by, trying to knock them down on their back and brush them off the plate. But I think a lot of guys learned a lot from him, and he wasn't necessarily as much of a technician with regards to the mechanics involved, but the mental side of the game. He had a great impact on my career. And Gooby, I know that you have certain guys that you've had as coaches, and you see certain players that have that influence on you. And I think when you have the chance to spend a number of years with those type of guys, you just mature and you become a more rounded, a more complete player. And it may not be helping you develop a new pitch, or it may not be helping you develop a new style of pitching, but it's helping you understand the best way to get the most out of what you have as a pitcher.
Yeah, exactly. I run into him because he does some scouting, at least he had over the last 2 years for Baltimore, and the minute I see him, it's as if he's still coaching me. He's that kind of guy. I think the big thing is you learn from him is respect, and I think that's a word that sometimes kind of goes away. I mean, we always talk about chemistry in the clubhouse and this and that, but respect is just as important of a word, because you respect the people who play before you, respect the game right now, respect the people who are coaching you, respect the fans that come out and spend their hard-earned money to watch you play. So that word for me is something I learned from him, and I think that's the biggest thing you can take on as a human being through the game and then outside the game and beyond that in whatever field you're into at this particular point. Because if you respect people, you're going to be a much better person. You're certainly going to be a better teammate and a better opportunity to win games.
Well, I want to ask both of you guys, and this is along the same lines of Bruce Keeson, but also getting back to Jason Vargas and the way the game has changed and not as many guys pitching inside. It's definitely something that you've got to work a little bit harder to get these guys to do. And Monty, you'll remember a couple of years ago with Dave Island and Luke Hochevar, and they really were trying to get him to get more comfortable and pitch inside. You see that from a lot of pitchers now. But Gooby, can you and Monty, I know you were able to do this, but as a guy that's not throwing 95, 97, 98 miles an hour, you take a Jason Vargas. Can you go out there and still intimidate guys in this day and age?
No doubt. I mean, when you look at somebody like Jamie Moyer, who threw, 80, 81, he broke more bats than anybody in baseball because he threw inside, because he made you aware of his changeup away and his fastball away, like a Tom Glavine, too, who's going into Hall of Fame this year. If you could pitch inside, that whole outer part of the plate is so important. I talked to the late Don Drysdale early in my career when Dick Hauser set up a meeting with me, and he said, hey, listen, hitters have a part of the plate, you have a part of the plate. You just can't allow them to know which part of the plate is theirs that night, and they're going to have a part of it, but if you can pitch inside effectively, there's a lot of people that throw inside and hit people. They're trying to throw effectively inside, but when you hit it,
Super Bowl picks,
defeat the purpose. You want to make sure you pitch inside. You can throw for a strike on occasion, but also keep them aware of moving their feet. I mean, throwing up at their head, not as effective. Even Bruce Keeson, going back to him, said, hey, that's the one way that hitter can get out of the way easier when you throw up in that neck area, because they can move more. If you throw out in the knee area, the foot area where they make them move their feet, then you change their eye level, and it's more important to be able to do that than throw inside. So there's effective ways to do that. I know a lot of, Tony La Russa was a guy that really got upset when you threw inside on his guys. But the reality is the reason why he was upset, because you've taken away that good part of the plate in which they were able to extend their arms and hit for power.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because another thing that as a pitcher you learn, for the most part, you're going to make your living away. So now you have to own that outside part of the plate. But if you don't command the respect from the hitter by throwing inside at least occasionally, then he's just going to take that outside corner away from you, and you're going to lose the ability to be effective on the part of the plate you need in order to make a living and be successful as a major league pitcher. So the inside element is very key. And you mentioned Charlie Leiband. He was as good as anybody that I saw. It's a lot like Jamie Moyer. Didn't overpower people, but he pitched inside. He broke bats, and he got pop-ups in the infield that were just ridiculous with not a lot of stuff. And I remember Jason Vargas, when he would pitch against the Royals a lot of times, he would make sure that everyone knows that he owns the inside part of that plate, and then he's going to get you out with that changeup away.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's so important. Your changeup by design is to get outs. And the best way to get outs is to be able to pitch inside and then set up with a changeup so they can make contact but beat off the end of the bat. And when you can do that, you get some easy, quick outs.
Last question, and then Gooby will let you go. And I want to ask this to both of you because it does seem like it's in the news every single day. It's not Royals related. And, well, for today, maybe it's not because they're distracted by the Tanaka signing in New York. But I'm just curious. I mean, both of you were, as just about everybody that played during your time, very involved with the union, and I know that both of you will vouch for how good the Major League Baseball Players Association has been to both of you. So as players, there's been a lot of brushback now and a lot of talk against Alex Rodriguez because he sued the union. And I'm just wondering if something like that happened in your day, Gooby, and you saw someone that big of a name, a superstar, take a shot
break
at the Union and really, something that you guys hold sacred. What would you have thought, or what do you think?
Boy, I'll tell you, that was a real tough one, Joel, because I've known A-Rod for a long time, and I've forged a pretty decent relationship. I don't agree with a lot of the stuff he has said, and I certainly do not agree with him suing the Players Association. When you think about what the Players Association has done, not only monetarily for players, but what they've done as far as, have to go to bat for certain players, even though they know that they may have been doing something wrong. But as a union leader, you're responsible to protect your union, and the players itself. For A-Rod to do that, especially taking shots at the late Michael Weiner, that guy was one of the nicest people you will ever meet, and he did a fantastic job. We've had harmony as far as the Players Association and the owners since that '94 strike. It's difficult to hear those negative words, and Tony Clark has done a very good job as far as saying, listen, we do everything we can to protect our guys, and when you say something negative about it, it's very difficult. But again, I think it's a situation where A-Rod's getting some advice. I think he's done a very good job the last few days or so, in which he's stayed away from everything and realizing there's nothing he can do at this point. They're more than likely, 2014 will be a year in which he gets himself completely healthy for the 2015 season. Hasn't said much lately. Probably the best thing for him to do.
Yeah, and I agree with that. When we were talking the other day here at the fantasy camp about A-Rod, I wrote down on a piece of paper two words. I wrote, A-Rod equals a joke, because I think it is absolutely a joke that these players that I'm here working with in this fantasy camp, everyone made sacrifices so the next generation of players would have at least as good, if not better, conditions. And A-Rod has taken advantage of all of those sacrifices that the former players have made, and now he's suing that very union that he would very likely be the one who benefited more than anyone in the history of the game for those particular stances that the union has made and the advice that they have given players. And I just think it's a joke that he's making the comments that he's making now, litigation against that association.
It's good stuff, Monty and Gooby, and really interesting takes from both of you. Gooby, we'll let you go because, I don't want to hold you out of that 83-degree weather too long.
Yeah, I might go out and shoot some hoops with my kids right now because I got to get a little sweat in right now. Well, Monty's doing okay. He's in Arizona right now. It's warm out there. We know that.
If anybody wants to come hang with me here in KC, by all means,
What's the temperature out there in KC right now?
I don't know. The wind chill's low. That's all I know. We don't have snow right now.
I know it's extremely cold in Philly, so at least you're not there right now. Digging out of 15 inches of snow.
Not digging out, yeah. All right, Gooby, thanks. Always great to catch up with you, and we'll see you next month in Arizona.
Sounds cool. Joel, Monty, have a good one, guys.
Royals Hall of Fame pitcher Mark Gubicza. When we come back, Monty with a fantasy camp visit alongside of Hall of Famer George Brett. Stay with us on the Sports Radio 810 Hot Stove Show.
Whatever you require for audio, video, and broadcast solutions, it's Professional Video Supply. PVS is a leading supplier and integrator of pro video and audio gear for the Midwest. For the boardroom, worship, production houses, medical facilities, TV stations, and sports networks, PVS has it. Canon, Sony, Yamaha, Sharp, and hundreds of others. From a single camera or touchscreen display to an entire TV studio, remember Professional Video Supply, the official video source for 810 WHB TV at pvskc.com. pvskc.com.
Some of the best teams in the world are in Kansas City. The Chiefs, the Royals, Sporting, and the Border Patrol.
The Border Patrol? St. John and Bucati? Those two guys couldn't hold on.
Easy there, fellas. We may not be the two godfathers of Kansas City sports like you guys are,
but we do know how to have a good time talking sports.
And having a good time like Gary Lezak has a good time.
Make the Border Patrol a part of your morning, just like I do.
Watch Sports Radio 810's Border Patrol, weekday mornings from 7 to 8 on 38 The Spot.
It's a good price.
Good.
It's low mileage. They were very straightforward about the lowest price. And
no haggling, no hassle type thing. I'm all for that.
How did we do on your trade-in value?
Really well. I was hoping for half of what I got for it.
I got, over what I was thinking I was going to get for it.
We'll be back ourselves. Even if we don't live in the area, we'll figure out a way.
Whatever you require for audio, video, and broadcast solutions, it's Professional Video Supply. PVS is a leading supplier and integrator of pro video and audio gear for the Midwest. For the boardroom, worship, production houses, medical facilities, TV stations, and sports networks, PVS has it. Canon, Sony, Yamaha, Sharp, and hundreds of others. From a single camera or touchscreen display to an entire TV studio, remember Professional Video Supply, the official video source for 810 WHB TV at pvskc.com. pvskc.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Radio 810 Hot Stove Show, brought to you by your independent tire dealers, locally owned and operated. Find an independent tire dealer near you by going to itdroll.com or call 1-877-ITD-ROLL. Joel Goldberg back in studio. Jeff Montgomery out in Phoenix. Fantasy camp is going on, so want to toss it out to Monty right now and let him pick it up with a very special guest.
All right, thanks, Joel. Thanks for letting George Brett, Royals Hall of Famer, Major League Baseball Hall of Famer, and I join you from Surprise, Arizona, sunny Surprise. I know the weather's cold back in Kansas City, but George, fortunately, you and I have had a chance to enjoy some great weather here in Surprise at Fantasy Camp.
Yeah, it's been. I don't know how many years we've been doing it down here. By far, when I looked at the schedule and they said, "Okay, you're going to do Fantasy Camp in January this year," I'm going, "Oh my gosh, it might be a little chilly." Try 81 degrees on every day we've been down here. It's been fantastic.
We have been lucky. We have not seen any stellar baseball. We're going to see a lot tomorrow. We're going to see a lot tomorrow when the alums face off against all of the fantasy campers, so that should be a lot of fun. Talking about fun, think about this offseason in comparison to what we've had for a number of years. And I know you're in the spotlight a lot. You're around a lot of people that want to talk baseball, and probably more so than any year that maybe with the exception of 2004, we've had a lot of good things to talk about.
Well, yeah, after the Royals season last year, they finished, 8, 9, 10 games over 500. Actually, were in the wild card hunt for a long time. Played the Detroit Tigers out of 19 games. They were 10-9. I think we were 6-1 against the playoff team, the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. I think we were 6-1 against the Boston Red Sox. We had a few bad stretches early in the season, but all in all, the Kansas City Royals had a lot of people talking about them for the first time in a long time. And I think what Dayton did this offseason, going out there and getting the leadoff hitter that we really desperately needed. Not that Alex Gordon wasn't a leadoff hitter, Monty, wasn't a good one. He was pretty good at it, but he's not a leadoff hitter. He's too valuable in the 4th, 5th, or 6th spot in the lineup because Alex is more of a power hitter. He drives the ball. He doesn't walk much. He strikes out a lot more than he walks. And to get a guy like Aoki from the Milwaukee Brewers, one of the things that you don't really see much in baseball anymore is a guy that walks more than he strikes out. You don't see that in baseball. And Aoki got, he's a good hitter. Hits 270, 280. He steals bases. He doesn't strike out much. You know, the Perez's and the Butlers and the Hosmers and the Moustakas and the Gordons behind them. I think we really have a chance to score a lot of runs this year.
Well, if you talk about that lineup, Ned Yost last year was oftentimes criticized like a lot of managers are with the variety of lineups. And I know when Chris Getz, for example, was at the top of the lineup, he got a lot of heat over that, but he put the best lineup out there he felt like he could do.
Well, he was searching almost every series, every game. Okay, who's hot, who's not? I'm going to try to get some guys that are hot and put them together so we can score some runs. And when you're working with a guy that's really not a good number 2 hitter, you know, I don't think Escobar is the perfect number 2 hitter. I think Infante is the perfect number 2 hitter. I think making the lineup cards, the lineup out this year for Ned's going to be a lot easier because you got a bona fide leadoff hitter and you got a bona fide number 2 hitter and you got a great number 3 hitter in Hosmer. You know, Butler can hit 4th, Perez can hit 5th, or Gordon can hit 5th, and Perez. I mean, it's going to be a really, really exciting time, and I'm looking forward to coming down here on the 18th or 19th of February and being around all these guys and seeing the new players that we got and seeing how this team unfolds for the upcoming season.
And that stability in the lineup, you went to the ballpark almost every day knowing where you're going to hit in that lineup. That has to be somewhat of a positive because it's not like you're searching for a combination of guys that are going to work for you on either a nightly or maybe even a series or a weekly basis. So it's got to be good for the offense to understand that they got those 2 guys at top, like you mentioned, and the middle 3, 4, and 5 guys are going to be probably fairly consistent, and the guys are going to be filling at the bottom of the lineup. So I think from an offensive side, it should be a lot easier for the guys going up to the plate.
Yeah, it's. I knew pretty much every day I went to the ballpark. When I first came up, my first year in 1973, I knew I was hitting 7th or 8th. And the next year I knew I was hitting 7th or 8th the first month of the season, or the first 2 months of the season. After I got going, I knew I was be hitting, you know, maybe 1st or 2nd. The next year I knew I was hitting 3rd every day I went to the ballpark. And there might be times when Whitey Herzog would come up to me and say, George, look, Freddie's not getting on base. You know, we need guys to get on base. I'm going to hit you leadoff for a good 2 or 3 weeks. Don't change your approach. And that's one thing where you talk to the players on the team, and they think because they're a leadoff hitter, they have to try to walk more, see more pitches. That's not really the name of the game because we don't have a hitter hitting. You know, basically, your number 9 hitter should be your second leadoff hitter, a guy with some speed. So if he gets on base, now your leadoff hitter can hit and run. It works out pretty good in this league. And Escobar, number 9, or whoever, one of our other players, going to be hit 9th this year. It's very, very important for them to get on base for these guys that are hitting 1st and 2nd. So I think our attack is going to be very sound. It's going to be very rounded. It's going to be not left-handed dominant, not right-handed dominant. Ned can, you know, hit a guy 6th or 7th or back up some right-handers or back up some left-handers against a tough right-hander. But all in all, I think he's going to have a lot more fun because there's going to be a lot less managing before the game starts.
Right, and you were describing the progression that you made starting at the bottom of the order when you were first in the big leagues and eventually moved to maybe the top part of the lineup and then in that power, that production spot in number 3 hole. For a player, we've seen Alex Gordon struggle mightily during his first few years in the major leagues. He went down, changed positions, seemed like it brought a new approach. He established himself as one of the best left fielders now in baseball. And talk about how a player eventually, and we saw it with Eric Hosmer last year, seemed like he really reestablished himself in the second half of the season. And for an offensive player, that progression that you have where you go from, 1, just establishing your can play in the major leagues, 2, that different slot in the lineup, and how about the confidence that can provide for you moving forward in your career?
Well, I think everybody that first gets to the major leagues is, number 1, happy to be there. Number 2, not really sure if they belong there. And until they have success, they really won't believe that and won't have the confidence. So you just try to survive. You do anything to try to survive and have success. Once you have a little success, now the pitchers that you're facing, they'll try to get you out a little bit more. I remember 2 years ago when Hosmer, he chased 1 high fastball in a game, and he struck out. Well, the next team came in, and every time they got 2 strikes on him, they threw him a high fastball, and he started chasing them. Now, all of a sudden, for a month, every time he got 2 strikes on him, they would just throw him a high fastball, and he would chase it, and he'd hit pop-ups, foul him off, and then all of a sudden he quit doing it. Now all of a sudden the other team has to figure out, okay, he's not doing that anymore. Now we got to find a way to get him out. These guys in the major leagues that pitch, and Monty, you had as good a control as anybody. If you know somebody's weakness, you can exploit them.
Right.
And it takes them a while in the major leagues to figure out these rookies, these young guys coming up, to have success against them, pitching them a certain way, and then all of a sudden that's what they do. Now the hitter has to make an adjustment. So it takes about 2 or 3 years, I think. I think this is Moustakas' 4th year playing. Last year he had a miserable year, but you know what I like about Moose? Not many people go down to Venezuela for a month and a half and play winter baseball. He had an opportunity to go down there and work with Pedro Grifol, our hitting coach. He has a very great relationship with them, and he really trusts Pedro, and Pedro really knows how to push Mike's buttons to get him to work harder and harder and harder. So I would be very surprised if Mike Moustakas doesn't come out and have a year, better than he had a couple years ago, which was a pretty good year. Right. I think he hit 270 with 20-something home runs. So, I think he's going to be more productive. Last year when I was coaching for the 2 months, I really started, tonight's the night I'm coming out of it. And I just keep saying that over and over to try to convince myself. I would watch video of me getting base hit. Okay, there, I can do it. I'd walk up to the batter's box and I would just say things like, this guy does not want to face me, and try to put myself mentally in a position to succeed. Mike Moustakas had a tough time doing that last year. He really did.
Right.
And hopefully he has learned an awful lot from miserable 2013 and mature a little bit, come to spring training. Because last year he had a great spring training. It was unbelievable how hard he was hitting the ball. He got off to a slow start, started pressing. And when I got there, he was hitting 172. And the first thing we told him, Pedro and I in Texas, I said, Mike, it's going to take you a good month to get to 225, 230. It's going to take you a month. You're not going to get there in a week. Nobody likes to go up there and see your batting average on that huge scoreboard wherever you go and see 172 with 2 home runs and 14 RBIs. You got to be patient, and you just got to do the things and do the drills and carry the drills into the game. And if you can do that, you can get to 250, 260, maybe 270. But you got to be diligent in your work, and you got to believe in what you're doing in batting practice. And he made strides. He got it up to 250.
Yeah, I remember he went on a stretch for about 5 or 6 weeks. He was hitting the ball really well. Then he kind of went back in the tank. And
then because he was having success, he kept working hard. Nobody worked harder than him last year. Then he had about 3 or 4 games in a row where he hit the ball decent enough to get 2 or 3 hits, and maybe got one. He went. It was a 3-game series. I think he had 12 at bats. He got 2 hits. He could have had 6 or 7. But he hit the ball really hard, and he started getting frustrated. And then he tried to start hitting it too hard. And then he kind of got back in the funk that he was in prior. But you see a lot of guys. Last year when we were there, we tried to give everybody a plan that they could work on in batting practice. Clint Hurdle told me this last year when I took the job. He said, George, make sure they have a plan. And if they don't have a plan, give them a plan. Because if you don't have a plan, your plan's going to fail. Mm-hmm. So we had a talk with everybody. What's your plan in BP? I don't have a plan. Well, let's have a plan. Let's work on your plan in BP, and then we will take it into the game. And we saw some success with a lot of people. A lot of people already had their plan, and they really didn't. We didn't really mess with them. But I got a feeling now that Pedro's been with these guys for a year, he's a very knowledgeable hitting guy, knows more about the mechanics of a swing than I do. I was more of a feel hitter. And I really think after working with Pedro last year, now they'll get to work with him all spring. Then the season starts in April. I think they're going to be pretty productive.
Well, we're here surrounded by enormous Royals baseball fans here at Fantasy Camp. They know everything. They watch every ball game. And I think Mike Moustakas and Billy Butler are the 2 names that we hear most. So let's hope that Mike Moustakas is able to rebound like you talked. I know Billy's a great hitter. It's going to be interesting to see how he rebounds for a year that really wasn't the type of year that we're accustomed to seeing Billy have, especially following up that 2012 season.
Yeah, I think Billy even expected to have a better year. And he got a little frustrated. And I think that, they were swinging the bats good when they were winning in April. And then what happened to them when they went 4-23, I think everybody tried to be a hero. Nobody tried to be a soldier. And they were all trying to hit 3-run home runs with nobody on when they're down 3 runs. And everybody was just trying to do more than they were capable of doing. And one of the things that Charlie Lau,
1 minute,
just do what you're capable of doing. You're not capable of hitting a home run when you try. You're capable of hitting the ball hard. Well, if you hit the ball hard, guess what? It will go far.
Right.
So all I ever tried to do was hit the ball hard, and one year I hit 30 home runs. I didn't try to hit 30 home runs, but I hit 30 home runs just trying to hit the ball hard. And there's a lot of different ways that you can win ball games, Monty. A base hit, a double, a single, that's 2 runs.
Mm-hmm.
That's 2 runs right there. So
30.
Play small ball, and if the big ball happens.
And you'll have 1 minute where we're at.
I think last year, when they had that terrible stretch, I was watching the games, and it just seemed like everybody was just trying to hit a home run from the 6th inning on if they're down 1 run. And we didn't win many ball games with them trying to do that.
Yeah, it certainly was a tough stretch. Well, George, we want to thank you for being part of our Sports Radio 810 Hot Stove Show. We got big plans tonight with our fantasy camp teams going out to dinner. I know you guys have a great time. We're looking forward to it again. Thanks for being on with us. And, Joe, we'll throw it back to you.
Guys, great stuff. Jeff Montgomery and George Brett. Thank you, George, for stopping in with us. I'm going to let those guys get to their fantasy camp dinners. We will put a wrap on the Sports Radio 810 Hot Stove Show when we come back.
Whatever you require for audio, video, and broadcast solutions, it's Professional Video Supply. PVS is a leading supplier and integrator of pro video and audio gear for the Midwest. For the boardroom, worship, production houses, medical facilities, TV stations, and sports networks, PVS has it. Canon, Sony, Yamaha, Sharp, and hundreds of others. From a single camera or touchscreen display to an entire TV studio, remember Professional Video Supply, the official video source for 810 WHB TV at pvskc.com. pvskc.com.
Some of the best teams in the world are in Kansas City. The Chiefs, the Royals, Sporting, and the Border Patrol.
The Border Patrol? St. John and Bucati? Those 2 guys couldn't hold on.
Easy there, fellas.
We may not be the 2 godfathers of Kansas City sports like you guys are,
But we do know how to have a good time talking sports.
and having a good time like Gary Lezak has a good time.
Make the Border Patrol a part of your morning, just like I do.
Watch Sports Radio 810's Border Patrol, weekday mornings from 7 to 8 on 38 The Spot.
And welcome back, as we want to thank everyone for listening, and a big thanks to Royals Hall of Famers Mark Gubicza and the big Hall of Famer, of course, George Brett, for joining us. They're having a great time
1 minute
out at Fantasy Camp. Want to let everybody know we're back next Wednesday, and when we are back, it'll be all this other Royal stuff going on. The Caravan is next week, and then following that is Fan Fest, a couple of days downtown at the Convention Center at Bartle Hall. So we've got a lot to talk about, and Monty will be out on the Caravan next week, see if he can line up a player while he is doing that, and should be a lot of fun. So for Jeff Montgomery, I'm Joel Goldberg. Hope to see you back here next week. Also, you can check out if you missed any of this on 810WHB.com and WHB TV. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Talk to you next week.
Here on Sports Radio 810 WHB as well.